afternoon. Let's get started. I have to say, as Dean, these are one of the events that you really like to do, so much better than the town hall, I have to say. This is a great time where we get to celebrate one of the things that's so important to the law school, excellent teaching in the classroom. And I'm very pleased this year that we've changed up the format ever so slightly so that our committee, student selected committee, is actually making the presentations. To begin with, I want to just introduce a couple of people. First, I wanted to especially recognize Susan Voekel, the daughter of Leon H. Wallace, for which one of the awards are named after. Susan, you've been coming many years. Perhaps you could have a round of applause. Talk about Dean Wallace in just a second. I also want to make a special thanks to the student selection committee, Zach, Alyson, and Debbie, who've really done a Herculean job of going through and putting together the nominations and making sure that we've got a great slate. Perhaps you guys are going to come up in a second, but perhaps you could stand and we could congratulate and thank you too. And this is the brilliance of my grand scheme this year. Debbie, it's all yours.
Professor Fisher is being awarded the Trustee Teaching Award today because he is an incredible professor both in and out of the classroom. He is passionate about the course material, he brings incredible energy to each class, he is encouraging and helpful to students, and he has a great sense of humor. Professor Fisher's passion for his classes likely stems from the unique perspective he brings as Indiana's Solicitor General. The fact that this incredibly important state figure takes time out of his day to teach us is not lost on students. One called it an incredible experience to attend a class taught by him. Not only does Professor Fisher offer a lot of practical advice, but he is often able to provide fascinating behind-the-scenes accounts of many of the cases we study. Because of his real job, he is able to bring a unique perspective on government and the functioning of the legal system. No matter what is going on in his office or in Indy or in the courts, Professor Fisher brings incredible energy and enthusiasm to each and every class. He encourages student participation and leads excellent discussions about complex and often confusing materials. He always takes time to answer practical questions, to clarify unique, unclear doctrine, and to tell appropriate war stories. Regardless of the day's topic, Professor Fisher engages his students. He does not shy away from policy discussions, and he encourages the free exchange of ideas, even those with which he disagrees. It is because of his enthusiasm that students finish his classes knowing far more than they started. Professor Fisher encourages his students to grow as academics as well as aspiring legal professionals. His classes are far more challenging than most bar courses. He assigns interesting and diverse readings. He attempts to expose his class to a wide variety of legal topics. Not only do his students read different types of legal writing, he asks us to draft different types of legal writing. As his student, I alone have written an academic paper, a state attorney general opinion, a bench memorandum, a notice of appeal and docketing statement, a policy memorandum, a motion to dismiss a cross appeal, sections of an amicus brief, and most recently, a full-length appellate brief. During the writing process, he makes himself very accessible to students. He fields questions and provides guidance, and that's been very helpful. After each assignment, he provides detailed and thorough feedback, greatly improving our writing. He's also invariably willing to speak to students after class, either to continue discussing the day's material or to provide sage advice about careers, clerkships, or anything in between. Finally, students greatly appreciate his sense of humor. In fact, some of his jokes are so memorable, they're remembered months later, or semesters later even. Professor Fisher is truly one of the best teachers we have here at Maurer, and he deserves to be recognized for his passion, his energy, his encouragement, and his humor. So please come up here. Now, Alyson will come up and present the next two.
Today we award Professor Seth Lahn with a Trustee's Teaching Award. Professor Seth Lahn is notoriously one of the law school's most non-traditional faculty, and I say that from a place of a lot of love. You'll rarely find him in a classroom. You won't find him sitting in front of a blackboard nor behind a PowerPoint asking you for a case summary. Instead, you'll find him racing in between conference rooms of eager students, reviewing client intake memos, hosting conference calls at all hours with clients in need, and supervising aspiring advocates in court. He provides a safe space for us to explore our interests and provides numerous opportunities for students who find themselves outside peering into the school's clinic programs. And when the school needs him to be that guy in front of the blackboard, he is. During the 2013-2014 school year, he took on a legal research and writing course when a fellow colleague required a leave of absence. He also dedicates countless hours to supervising the new court board and teaching appellate advocacy. Furthermore, he served as supervising faculty member for numerous students, participating in judicial externships each semester and summer, thereby providing the groundwork for our pipeline into clerkships. Heading into its 26th year of service, and you all know I have to mention the Protective Order Project, has continued to grow as a community resource and gain recognition both within and outside of the law school. As a direct result of his leadership and dedication, POP has opened almost, or I think it's over 100 now, cases this year alone, recruited over 80 law student volunteers, which includes JD students and LLM students, and donated well over 340 pro bono office hours thus far this year alone. These numbers don't even begin to delve into the hours spent by Professor Lahn helping 1Ls, 2Ls, and 3Ls alike in preparing for cases in which domestic violence, stalking, and sexual assault victims seek protection within a complex legal system. His creative lawyering and tireless dedication translates far beyond the numbers. It is not uncommon to receive an email from him in the early hours of the morning or have him host a client meeting at 8 p.m. on a Sunday. Furthermore, it's not uncommon to hear amongst the student body that POP was a major deciding factor in choosing IU Maurer School of Law. Professor Lahn ensures that this choice was worthwhile, as his teaching reminds us that we are not just students at IU, but members of a broader community. He is a clear example of a faculty member who goes above and beyond, and reminds us that we are not merely students reading from a textbook. His leadership and dedication shows us that we can help those most in need, even from the earliest moments of our legal career, and that we have a responsibility here at Maurer to give back to the greater Bloomington community. In a changing law school atmosphere and a legal career market, he teaches us the skills necessary for students to adapt as future legal professionals. In closing, as one student describes his passion, although he's incredibly busy, he's always available to help in any way possible. He genuinely cares about the students and the law school community, which shows in all of the work he does for Maurer. For all of his work today, we present him with a Trustee's Teaching Award. I will not cry at all during this time. The next one, I can't promise not to cry. So we're presenting Professor H. Timothy Lovelace with the Trustee Teaching Award. He's relatively new to the teaching faculty at IU Maurer School of Law, but he's already amassed a reputation for teaching challenging courses in which students exit the final exam as transformed and inspired legal scholars. Across his evaluations, students refer to Professor Lovelace as by far the best professor in the school, and his courses as my favorite law school class. Without a doubt, one of the best classes I've taken. I've learned more in this class than any class in my higher education. I'll let you know, one of those are mine, but I won't tell you which one is. And while those statements are impactful, they're increasingly meaningful when put into perspective. Each of his classes are highly demanding, with some weeks requiring hundreds of pages of reading and synthesis, and notice that you are always on call. Yet, review after review, students describe his class as worthwhile, and one even wrote as a weakness, the class only met 3 days a week and 1 semester long. I was not that student. In review, students request more class time, more discussions, more reflection paper assignments, but his reviews are clear. They overwhelmingly benefit from more of Professor Lovelace's teaching. He teaches advanced constitutional law, American law and society, and a seminar on American legal history. When students sign up for his class, they expect an interesting study of areas of law historically and widely ignored by the legal curriculum. When you find a safe environment, he begins his class with a roadmap of where you'll be headed, and once he unravels the pieces of the legal story through a combination of lecture, open discussion, and multimedia, you find your mind traveling to ideas and concepts you never considered before. He has moved several classes to tears by exposing our nation's history and shocked speechless students with his presentation of current legal doctrine. For a class of second and third year law students who often believe they've seen all there is after taking their first year courses, he provides a curriculum that encourages each student to revisit every legal doctrine they have learned to gain a deeper and mature understanding. For instance, instead of presenting the reporter's edition of Loving v. Virginia and soliciting the case facts, the procedural history, the legal information, and the holding from students, he asks you, who are the plaintiffs? And a law student naturally responds, an interracial couple, because even the most disinterested first-year law student has learned this halfway through first-year constitutional law. But then he asks you again, who? And he shows you a picture of the plaintiffs. He asks you to consider their circumstances of poverty. He plays you the auto recording of their oral arguments. He tells you the story after the case ends, one of despair and one of death. He explains who the parties were, the role of the attorneys, and the intersections of this case's history with hundreds of years of policy and social norms. In a legal world where we're trained to see bland case holdings and bottom lines, Professor Lovelace reminds us all that at the very bottom of our differences, we are human beings. By explaining how those on the ground created change, he inspires us and encourages students during each and every minute of class that we too have the power to effectuate meaningful change. In addition to lecture, he creates a safe space for students of all backgrounds to explore pressing legal topics and encourages us to examine our own lives prior to law school and interpret our history to redefine our futures. When he ends his lecture, he packs up his notes and walks upstairs to his office, but he leaves the door open for inquiring students. And in countless classes, we remain speechless. We're stunned at what we just learned. On a regular weekday, students will look around each other, wondering if we should commence in applause and gratitude for our experience. Today, we should commence in applause and honor the student experience, the teaching excellence, and the dedication of Professor H. Timothy Lovelace in awarding him the Trustee Teaching Award.
No one invests more time, more of herself into the classes she teaches and the students she mentors than Professor Jody Madeira. She energetically brings her sense of humor and personal anecdotes into every class, creating an engaging, collaborative educational environment, which is why she is consistently a favorite with the students here at Maurer. Professor Madeira's passion for teaching is evident in both inside and outside the classroom. In class, Professor Madeira's love for academia shines in her energetic teaching style. She creates an environment where students are comfortable participating and never feel rushed when asked for clarification. Her understanding of the material is so vast that she explains complicated cases and detailed doctrine in a way that is easily understandable to even first-year law students. Professor Madeira makes it clear that she genuinely cares about every student's understanding of the material. She's so energetic and genuinely excited about teaching that she even tends to bring in outside information during class, whether that's news stories that relate to today's torts lesson, photographs of her triplets when studying assisted reproductive technology, or serenading the class with an original torts-filled parody of a popular song at the infamous Torts-a-Ween. There is never a dull moment in her class. She keeps class discussion light, and her students literally laugh out loud to her clever, tongue-in-cheek humor. In fact, many say she's quite punny. But even outside the classroom, Professor Madeira makes our law school a community. She understands the importance of having a faculty mentor who a student can turn to for anything. She not only makes herself accessible to students through the traditional means of email and office hours, but she also hosts events like Torts and Torts, which gives her students an opportunity to become close with her on a more personal level, the best way possible, over food. As one of her students stated in a course evaluation, Professor Madeira is so invested in helping her students succeed that for the first time I felt really confident about my professional future. She encourages and facilitates her students' pursuit of their interests, never hesitating to volunteer her support and assistance. It is clear that many students say their experiences with Professor Madeira as a highlight of their time at Maurer. She is one of the best teachers the school has. She is enthusiastic and engaging, which creates an amazing and unique atmosphere in her class. One could not ask for a better professor, and no one deserves this honor more. For these reasons, I'm happy to present the Trustee Teaching Award to Professor Jody Madeira.
It's my privilege now to present the Leon H. Wallace Teaching Award. Leon H. Wallace Teaching Award was named after the 8th Dean of the Maurer School of Law, who served as the Dean from 1952 through 1966. He served as a faculty member for over 30 years, joining in 1945 until he retired in 1976. Throughout that time, he was known for his commitment to teaching in the classroom. He was a member of the ALI. His biggest contribution, I think, to the law school is he was the dean that moved us from Maxwell Hall across the way into this law building that you're here right now. And teaching was incredibly important to him. On a tribute upon his passing in 1985, faculty at the school wrote a letter describing him as a lawyer, a teacher, a scholar, a historian, a cartographer, an author, an administrator, a public servant, a loyal Hoosier, and somebody who had developed a lifelong love affair with both Indiana and Indiana University. He was a giant in the school's history, and we're very pleased to continue his legacy by honoring him by giving this award each year. And we're very grateful for the family to have established this award in 1986. I was going back to the archives this morning as I was getting prepared for giving this award, and I have to say I thought it was interesting because Professor Boschkoff retired this year. He was the first recipient of the award back in 1986, and at the time there was just a small little write-up. Apparently, this is hard for me to believe, but apparently in the 1980s he had a habit of jumping up on tables regularly during class, which was most of the focus for why he was the teaching awards, because of his exuberance and enthusiasm. Today, with the Leon Wallace Teaching Award, we have the honor of recognizing the teaching excellence of Professor J. Krishnan. I think Leon Wallace would be particularly proud that his legacy lives on with Jay. I have to say mine is much more shorter than what other people wrote. That does not convey any less about the quality of teaching. I'm just going to read through some of the things that students had submitted in nomination for this award. Professor Krishnan is one of the most talented educators, not just of the law school, but of any school I've been at. This is because he creates a fantastic learning environment, one in which all students feel comfortable and willing to participate. He encourages students to share unique perspectives and a willingness to entertain unique questions. He excels at explaining and dissecting complicated topics. Each class his teaching is organized and structured. He engages students through the use of thought-provoking questions. His teaching style is detail-oriented, organized, patient, and very approachable. In office hours, he's incredibly accessible and truly wants his students to understand the material and to succeed. Many of the comments had less to do with the teaching in the classroom, but also the willingness of the professor to engage outside the classroom. Professor Krishnan's teaching ability is only surpassed in value by his genuine concern for students. He invests a lot of time in helping students, whether that entails meeting with them out of the class or informing them about interesting events or professional opportunities. Another student wrote, he visits the Milton Stewart Fellows while they're abroad to ensure they're enjoying their experiences. His door is always open. Before finals, he likes to remind students that his cell phone number is on the class syllabus and that they should free to call him anytime with questions. He stays up late and he wakes early. He is genuinely passionate and wants them to succeed. This is the third time this week that I realized that I've been underachieving all my life. There is no way I'm ever giving up my cell phone. His passion and exuberance are contagious, inspiring. He inspires students to pursue newfound academic interests. He's upbeat, he's positive. In addition to everything described, he's also a fantastic storyteller and has a great sense of humor. To quote one student in their evaluation and one student on the committee, "I am just lucky to have been taught by him." It is my great honor as Dean to present Jay Krishnan with Thank you all for coming. If the award winners could stay so that we could take a group photograph, and perhaps we could have one round of applause, both again for the students on the selection committee and all the award winners. Thank you so much.